So Jack, you've been to Clubhouse Extra once before, is that right?
Yeah.
Once last year.
Last year.
And why don't you just start by taking us back to Clubhouse Extra last year and thinking back to what you maybe took away from it into the term ahead back at Warwick.
So I think the one thing I took really from last year was it was in the small groups right at the end of the 4 days. We were looking at how over the course of the Clubhouse Extra, how grace is for everyone, how we can't negotiate with Christ for who will be drawn to him and who will receive the gospel willingly. And so there was a real challenge as we went off on the final day to scatter recklessly, not to pick and choose who we share the gospel with, but to really just go crazy with it. And so I sort of took that on board and went back the next week to the university and the boys in the golf team as well. And it was great because there was an alpha course just starting up at church. And so in a sort of moment of madness, invited every single one of them to the alpha course, not really expecting any of them to come. I sort of invited them, and as I sent the text messages, just being like, they're going to politely say no, or they're going to have something on, or some of them just won't reply or something like that. And
how big's the golf club, Jack? Just give people a flavour.
So 20 guys in the golf team, with the golf squad, 2 teams of 6. And so invited all of them, and over the course of the Alpha course, it was an 8-week course, so over half of them came, which was brilliant. Some for 1 week, some for the whole 8 weeks, sorry. And one of them actually became a Christian, which is fantastic, and he's actually stuck into church now, and he's coming along to our Christians in Sport group as well, fantastic. Which is, more than I could have expected. I was blown away the fact that at least one of them came to the first Alpha. But
and amazing to hear that story here. You mentioned it briefly there, but kind of really what were you expecting maybe as you went away from Clubhouse Extra? Those words kind of ringing in your ears, to not negotiate for who'll come to be drawn to Christ, to scatter recklessly, to go for it, and you send out these invites to the guys. What were you really thinking would happen at that point?
I was kind of in a position where I was like, okay, well, I'll invite them, and that'll kind of be my work done, because nothing will come from it. I'll have that moment of boldness, tick the box. Great, I've invited them. We'll move on. I'll just kind of carry on being the only Christian in the golf team, but just blown away by how receptive people were to the gospel. People came and they slated Christianity. They didn't like it. They didn't want anything to do with it. But that was one more person who'd heard the gospel. Even if at the time they completely disagree with it, completely have all the reasons not to agree with it and stuff like that. So, but it was incredible, really.
And what was it like actually being sat there with your mates in an Alpha course and everything that went on around it, and seeing that journey for one friend in particular who then turned to Christ and continued to get stuck in? What was it like for you seeing God at work doing those things?
Initially terrifying. I was absolutely bricking it. But incredible at the same time. Everyone here, if you've had friends come to any sort of Christian events, be it Events Week or Christians in Sport quizzes or dodgeball tournaments, looking around and seeing your friends hearing about Christ and engaging with that in some capacity, it is just amazing. And it was just such a privilege to kind of be there, and especially my mate Ollie, he became a Christian, to see him now, growing, and just seeing him on that journey and seeing him getting, stuck in with church and stuck in now with, being a Christian in the golf team is it's just outrageous.
And so you think a year ago, only Christian in the golf club, and now you've got your mate alongside you, 2 of you there, trying to pray, play, say together as a pair in that club. It's just such a joy. And take us through then to September now, starting 3rd year. It's one of the most senior players in the club. What's it been like this term? So bring it back to the more recent, I suppose. What was it like kind of beginning of this term and onwards from there?
So we were lucky enough to, both of our 1s and 2s got promoted last year into the same league, actually. But we lost a lot of good players last year, so we're slightly out of our depth at the moment. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. And so we've gone from winning every game, as we've done the last 2 years, to being absolutely battered week in, week out. And that's quite tough. And I think as someone in the team who's relatively sort of distinctive and quite high up, I guess, as well, I can quite easily become a scapegoat for that. Yeah. Sort of bottled quite an easy position in a match first weekend against the hardest team in the league, and subsequently our team lost and got a lot of abuse for that, and that was really tough. Spent the whole of Circle just sort of.
Go on, just tell us what Circle is, because if you're not from Warwick, you'll have no idea what circling is.
So the it's most bizarre. No, it's not bizarre really. It's organised. Basically, you sit in a circle and play drinking games for sort of 3 hours prior to the club night, really.
And everybody does it. For
everyone does
Warwick,
it. Yeah.
Don't they, all together?
Yeah. So you sort of drink.
And so go on, after you sort of bottled it in your words.
Yeah.
What was that like, being part of that social with the boys?
Yeah, not very nice. I think a lot of people can relate to that. I think sort of spending an hour and a half playing a game that's related to you bottling it, and sort of 25, 30 drunk people sort of shouting at you for that can be quite hard, to say the least. But yes, and as the season's gone on, people are sort of calming down a little bit. I think we're accepting the fact that this season is not going to be, our year. But yeah, I think quite hard, completely different from last year.
Sure. And give us a highlight then, maybe from this term. What's been a great moment? What have you seen God doing this term?
So I mean, already, I think off the back of so many of the squad last year coming to Alpha, just conversations about Christianity are actually quite normal in the squad now, and that's fantastic. And so it's funny actually. I was driving home from a match. We just played Loughborough, the enemy of all in terms of sports. I haven't met anyone from Loughborough here. Is anyone here from
Yeah, one.
Sorry.
He's put his hood up now at the front. He's hiding. Yeah. He's got his purple Loughborough hood.
The dreaded purple and white of Loughborough. So we played Loughborough, and they won. We should have won, but they won. Well, I mean, a few of the lads did bottle it that day, and that was. I think it's it's a difficult one when people do bottle it to kind of be gracious and stuff like that. But I think off the back of that, the Birmingham game early on, it was okay. But was in a car journey home with two of the lads and got on to winning and losing, and conversation flowed, and they both know I'm a Christian, and it got on to the fact that my identity isn't founded in whether I win or lose, and sort of, I don't know, a moment of madness. I was sort of went on to say about how my identity as a Christian is in my faith, and then had an hour's car journey where these two freshers were just like, so what does it mean, Jack, to be a Christian? What does that look like, and how do you find that? And sort of for 45 minutes, after a pretty rough day on the golf course, and just things like that. I think it's just great when people are inquisitive and people do want to know.
Sure. And you talked earlier about that kind of theme of not negotiating and just trying to go for it and leave it all in the Lord's hands and see who responds. And you were saying to me earlier about your sports quiz this term at Warwick was a moment where you really saw that in action. So just give us a little flavour of the sports quiz. We're going to do a dodgeball tournament later, which can be one of these guest events to bring friends. There's a bit of a spark for conversation. And you ran a quiz similar. Just give us a little bit on that.
Yeah, so we ran a quiz 3 or 4 weeks ago and had 70, I think it was 71 in the end people come, which was amazing because there was a sports charity dance thing the same night. So I think 3/4 of Warwick's sporting population weren't available to come. And we still had 71 people, which was brilliant. And I guess it was just encouraging people, encouraging the guys from CIS just to really scatter recklessly, just to send message after message after message after message after message after message, to the point it gets annoying for people, but at least they'll know about it, and at least they might come. And we had 71 people come, and what was brilliant was the fact that Ollie, this new Christian, I sort of really commissioned him. The golf team was the team I sent least messages to, because I really committed. I was just like, right, go for it. Just invite them. They need to hear the gospel, just like you have, just like you've responded to it. They need to hear that as well. And we had 3/4 of the golf squad came, just on Ollie's back, and it's great to see someone who's gone to Alpha, become a Christian. Was really, really far away from the gospel, was one of the heaviest drinkers in the club, now is inviting people along to hear the gospel.
Yeah.
And that's just, it's incredible.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. What a joy, isn't it, to hear that sort of story. I hope it's an encouragement to you. It's been a massive encouragement to me to hear that story from Jack. And we really do see that as we step out, we dare to tell, we dare to ask, we dare to invite, we dare to represent Jesus in our teams, that God can do and will do incredible things. And it's just a joy to be able to sit here a year on from those conversations you're having in the small group and be able to tell that story. So thanks, Jack, very, very much.